What's up guys, my name's Brandon and today we're going to be checking out Apple's brand new, highly anticipated Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. Now this is a very expensive accessory, so I'm going to be covering as many details as possible in this review and let you guys know if it's worth the money or not. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. This is the box that it comes in. You can see we have an easy peel tab here on the top for easy opening. You don't need a knife or anything like that. And then on the back here, you can see it shows some of the different viewing angles right here. Now I did get mine in the 12.9 inch variant. I do have both sides of the iPad, but I do like the 12.9 inch better, so I did go ahead and get that. And it opens up just like a MacBook box, and you see we have the case right here, the keyboard right here, and there's nothing else in the box. And just right away after pulling it out of the box, it feels like an iPad is already in there. It weighs like the exact same weight, it feels like, as an actual iPad Pro. So just keep that in mind. This will probably double the weight of the iPad Pro and it will feel more like maybe a MacBook Air or something like that. So let's just go ahead and take the plastic off right here. And you can see we are presented with the nice texture here on the case. Now it's just very similar to the Smart Folio case right here. This is not the Smart Keyboard Folio, it's just the Smart Folio from Apple. Very similar material, it's slightly different, and it's also a little bit darker, as you can see there. It may just be wear and tear over time, but it does look like more of a solid black on the new Smart Keyboard. And then actually opening up for the first time, you can see we do get a little pamphlet in here. It says designed by Apple in California. Let's see if we get any Apple stickers or anything like that. So no Apple stickers, just a little get started guide that basically just shows how to use this, even though it is very self-explanatory. So we can go ahead and set that off to the side to never be seen or read again. And then here is the keyboard itself. And man, this thing is very stiff, which is actually a really good thing because that tells me it's going to be very sturdy. So let me just go ahead and put my iPad in there. So this is the 2020 iPad Pro 12.9. Now this does also work for the 2018 iPad Pro as well, so keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and put this on for the first time and see how it works. So just like expected, the magnets, it sticks in there very well, and pretty much you're good to go right once you put it in. There's no setup, there's no batteries needed, nothing like that. It's ready to go right once you go ahead and put it on the iPad. And man, this just straight up feels like a MacBook. It feels like I'm using like a small MacBook Air. So as far as weight goes, like I mentioned in the beginning, if you go ahead and close it together and you carry it, it feels about the same weight as a MacBook Air to me. It feels like my 2020 MacBook Air in terms of weight. So it's pretty much going to be double the size of your iPad Pro is kind of something I would go to base it off of. But just imagine you're holding like a MacBook Air. That's pretty much what it feels like. So taking a look around the case itself, we do have fully exposed top, bottom, and right-hand side, whereas the left-hand side has the hinge right here. So up top, you can see the speakers, the power button, and things like that. On the left-hand side, up top, we do have our USB-C pass-through charger. So this is going to allow you to charge the iPad Pro through this port. Now you cannot use it to connect to an external drive or to an external display. It's strictly for charging. And then of course you could see the hinge on the bottom left. Of course we do have the fully exposed USB-C port and more speakers. And then on the right hand side we do have our magnetic strip there and our volume rockers. Of course you can also attach your Apple Pencil to this because it is not fully covered. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Smart Keyboard is pretty expensive this year. So it's $299 for the 11-inch model and $349 for the 12.9-inch model, which is what I have right here. So that's just $50 less than the new 2020 iPhone SE. So just keep that in mind. And of course, we will see throughout this video if it's worth it for you or not. So we have the backlit scissor switch keyboard right here, which feels great to type on. It's very similar to the new MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. It feels very, very similar. Of course, we do have the trackpad here. It is mechanical, so we do have a mechanical click. It's not software based, and it does feel really good. You can click on all four corners. It is pretty small. It's a little bit smaller than I expected, honestly, but it's definitely big enough to use gesture controls. So you can see I can put 3 fingers on here pretty easily for the gestures, which I will cover here in a second. And one of the first things I noticed is that we do not have an escape key or any kind of controls to control the brightness. So I'll talk about that a little later as well, but those are just kind of my first impressions, the first things I noticed. I do also really like the viewing angles. You can kind of just stop it at any given time and it'll, have the resistance to stay in that exact spot, which is really convenient. basically so you're not stuck with just like one or two different viewing angles. You have a lot of different options here as far as viewing. And as far as actually using the iPad, I know a lot of people wonder about the give and how much it actually like shakes and moves around while you're touching it. And I can tell you guys that after scrolling through like web pages and touching really hard on the screen, it does wobble if you press really hard like this, but honestly, it doesn't move anywhere. I mean, it's very, very sturdy. You can see the bottom there, it's not really moving at all unless you really push hard. And I mean, I'm pushing really hard here and it still, holds its ground there. So it's very, very sturdy. It's going to be great if you do, draw a lot, if you do Illustrator or anything like that. It will be great for that. And of course, it'll be great for just anytime you don't want to use, the keyboard. When you want to use your hand, you don't have to worry about the screen going back and, throwing you off and being unsturdy. Everything is very, very sturdy, which once again is probably why it weighs a good bit. Now, if you want a little bit of a different angle, this is another thing you could do. I'm just doing this so I can show you guys some of these settings a little bit easier on camera here, but I could see this being useful for people who may want to do this for drawing. It actually has some resistance here, so you could use this for drawing. And if you want to kind of like a privacy little thing right here, you can do that. So you could be on your iPad with a little bit of privacy so the person in front of you can't see your screen. But I just wanted to go through and show you guys some of these settings with this new Magic Keyboard. So if you go into our settings on iPad OS and we go to the General tab down here, you will see we do have a section here for trackpad. And you can see here we have different things that we can change for the trackpad. So the tracking speed, we have natural scrolling, we have tap to click, and 2-finger secondary click. So you have all those to choose from in here. And then of course we can change things with the pointer as well. If we go into accessibility and then down to pointer control, you could change all these options with the actual pointer control when you're using the trackpad, which is this guy right here. And you will see it does disappear after 2 seconds, which you can change right there. But the main thing you guys are going to use with this Magic Keyboard is going to be in your settings. So if you go to settings, general keyboard, and then hardware keyboard, this is where you can change the keyboard brightness. So the backlit keys, you could change the brightness of those. Now it does say it's adjusted automatically based on the ambient lighting conditions, but you can go in here to change it manually if you wanted to. You do also have some other options here as well, like auto capitalization, the auto correction, and then also the period shortcut. And then you do also have modifier keys right here, which you can change if you would like to. Now there's also some really awesome multitasking gestures that you can use with the trackpad. So let's go ahead and turn this back over and show you guys some of these really awesome gestures you can use with the smart keyboard. So if you use a Mac with a trackpad or you connected a trackpad to your iPad, these are all going to be very familiar to you, but you could use all of these multitasking gestures on the smart keyboard now. You don't need anything external. So if you go ahead and do a 3-finger swipe up, that will take you home, and you can keep on swiping up to pull up the multitasking pane right there. You can also use a 3-finger swipe left or right to go in between applications. So you can see right here, going in between applications super quickly and easily. This is great for multitasking, and the trackpad is just big enough for 3 fingers to fit. I don't think it could have been any smaller. Otherwise, I probably would not be able to fit all 3 fingers on there comfortably. And also, if you do any kind of video editing in something like LumaFusion or iMovie, you're going to be able to zoom in and out on the timeline with the trackpad. So this is very, very useful, and it's going to make your workflow a lot more efficient to be able to zoom in and out on that timeline and kind of just scrub back and forth on the timeline view. It's really just like you're working off of a desktop. And then we do also have gestures specifically for the Safari application, so for like web browsing, and you can do this by using a 2-finger swipe to go forward or backwards. So just a 2-finger swipe, you can see it goes forward and backward on the web page, which is really fast. And once again, just gives you that desktop feel, makes you feel like you're using a MacBook. Now, another feature you can take advantage of with this smart keyboard is full keyboard access. So this is going to allow you to control everything from the keyboard itself, and you'll never have to actually touch the iPad itself. So if you go into your settings right here, and then you go to accessibility, and then scroll down to keyboards, you'll see right at the top we have full keyboard access. Let's go ahead and turn that on, and you can see here it kind of shows you examples of how to use this on the iPad Pro here. And if you go into commands right here, this is where you set everything: how to move forward, how to move backwards, how to move left and right, how to, activate, go back, how to go home, the app switcher, everything. So it's going to take a lot of time to get used to and to understand and, know what buttons to press and shortcuts to press. But if you wanted to have full keyboard access to basically just run your iPad from the keyboard itself and never have to touch the screen, you can go ahead and set that up. And I think it's really something you should look into because it's very, very powerful. But me personally, I'm going to turn this off just because I don't mind touching the screen. I actually think it's kind of cool that you could do that, especially since it's not wobbly and it's not, a big inconvenience to actually touch the screen. So that is something to explore if you are into that or you think that you can benefit from that. Now, as far as if you can use this smart keyboard with an external mouse, yes, you can. So you can use both at the same time. You can also use another trackpad if you wanted to at the same time. So if you did want to add a mouse to this, you could do so with no issue. Now, one thing that I've noticed after using this for a little while is that it's pretty much impossible to open up with one hand because this is so top heavy, whereas like a MacBook is very bottom heavy, like the keyboard and everything is on the bottom, all the hardware is on the bottom. But with this, the iPad is at the top, so it's very top heavy. So that means that opening up is going to require two hands. So basically you're gonna have to put your hand here and then use your other hand to open it up and, you know, see the keyboard and everything. So it could be a little bit annoying. It's not as quick as you would, you know, like it to be like a MacBook or like previous cases, but that is just a little, it's not really a con, but it's just something that I noticed after using it for a little bit. And then like I mentioned, there's no escape key, there's no brightness, or there's no, you know, backlight brightness on the keyboard. So that could get a little bit tiresome to have to constantly dig through the settings to change the brightness. I do also like how you could put in your passcode manually. So you could use the numbers right here to type in your passcode without having to touch the screen if Face ID isn't working for whatever reason. But like I said, I do wish that there was an escape key up here in the top left to like quickly quit out of applications. You can use different commands on here. So if you use Command Q, it will cancel. You can also use Command H to go home. So if you're like inside of Safari, and Command H will take you home. And if at any time you wonder what command you can use, you can just hold down the command button for a few seconds and it shows you the command you can use. So now, should you buy the new Magic Keyboard? So it's a steep price, but if you use your iPad Pro a lot, then I think it's 100% worth the cost. It's going to improve your workflow substantially. I can already see a huge benefit to adding this to a workflow for any creative, especially if you use something like, you know, LumaFusion for editing videos. If you use Procreate for illustration, this is going to be a major improvement to your workflow. It's going to make things a lot easier. And once again, it just feels like you're using a MacBook when you throw this smart keyboard on your iPad Pro. And not to mention, it looks a lot more badass than any other keyboard on the market right now. It literally just hovers over the keyboard. I mean, what even? That's awesome. And I guarantee you, if you open this thing up in a coffee shop and people aren't super in tune with new tech, they're going to be so like, what is that thing? Like, they're going to think it's something from the future. It just looks super futuristic, super cool. I love the look of it. It's very, very sleek. It's very sturdy. It's very well built. It's very heavy, both on the top and the bottom. Of course, it is more top heavy because of the iPad Pro up here. But down here on the bottom, I mean, this is pretty thick as well. It's not, you know, flimsy. It's not cheap. It's a solid keyboard, a very nice size trackpad here as well. It's just big enough for my fingers. And typing on this thing feels amazing. It's not too loud when you type on it. There's a good bit of give. It feels like the MacBook Pro, the new 2019 MacBook Pro when you're typing on it. And really, I have no complaints here. I can actually see myself using my iPad Pro a lot more now than I did in the past. It's not that I didn't use it a lot already, but this just adds a whole different dimension to it. And I can see myself getting a lot more done a lot quicker on my iPad Pro now, whereas in the past I would, you know, want to get on my MacBook for that keyboard and the trackpad and things like that. So I really like the smart keyboard. Again, it is a steep price, but if you do use your iPad Pro a lot, I think it is definitely worth the money. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this new smart keyboard case. Are you getting one? Did you already get it? Let me know what you think about it down in the comment section below. Of course, give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss my iPhone SE coverage coming later on this week. Of course, I will be doing more coverage on the iPad as well. I'll probably do a follow-up review to this as well, maybe like, 3 to 6 months later to see how it's holding up. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.